Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Fred Speaks. I pray this podcast finds you in the best of health and spirits. And a topic for this podcast is we repeat life lessons until we learn. And I was thinking about all of the things that we go through as human beings, and sometimes you may wonder, why this is happening to me, or am I the only one that is going through certain things? And then there's times where there's things that keeps occurring in our lives, and sometimes we may wonder, man, it seems like I just went through something like this before. And it may be different people in your life, but it's the same scenario. And I just wanted to get some feedback from everyone concerning this, because it seems like it's like a lesson to be learned. And it's like we keep failing the lesson. So therefore, we keep attracting or bringing the same lesson keeps reoccurring, and it's obvious that we haven't learned from it. We haven't learned to face it, deal with it, and be able to make the right decision based on the lesson that we're experiencing. And so I was thinking about this topic because I was having some conversation with several different people about different things that it seems like they keep going through, or something they keep attracting in their lives, and they was wondering, why was it happening? And I was thinking about myself and different things that I've gone through, and it's like you have those moments where you keep going through the same thing over and over and over again. And then when I look back and assessed it, and I said, dang, every time this occurred, I made the wrong decision. So, for example, if the same type of person keeps coming into your life, someone of the opposite sex, and about a relationship or whatever, and you keep attracting the same kind of person that did you wrong, the same type of characteristics, and yet you keep entertaining that. You keep welcoming that in your life. And so you you have this cycle of the same type of thing until you can learn from it, okay, me in this type of situation does not work. It does not work for me. So when I see the signs, when I see the characteristics, I see everything that I've seen previously, then I need to I need to have a different reaction, a different response, a different behavior towards this lesson. And so I was thinking about that, and I was like, man, I wonder how other people feel about it, or do they just chalk it up as, this is just something that I'm going through. There's nothing behind it. It's just life. It's just the way things are happening. And so I just wanted to, do this podcast to kind of get some thoughts, and get people to thinking about if it's true that we, keep repeating the same life lessons until we actually learn from them. And when I say learn from them, we learn that, either a situation is either good for us or it's not good for us. If it is good for us, then, maybe we've been pushing away something that is good for us. Or if it's bad for us, maybe we've been welcoming certain things that we should be pushing away. So I just wanted to get, or put this out there to get people to thinking, and because I think it is something worth assessing in your life and looking over the course of your life, different experiences you've had, and maybe you may be able to quickly identify something that it seems like you repeated like several times until you actually got it. You had that moment like, okay, I get it. I get what I'm supposed to learn out of this. And I had been doing, opposite instead of doing the thing that I should have done, which was either to push it away or to welcome it in my life. And I was thinking about, even when it comes to, different work situations or whatever, it's like, we could be working on a job and we have this issue with certain types of people on the job. And it seems like even if we go and get another job, that we seem to still attract, or we still seem to encounter the same types of people that basically brings out the negative in us. And we continue to entertain it, or we continue to welcome those people around us, or even outside of work, welcoming people that we know that it's not gonna be a positive situation, but we want friendship, or we want a relationship so bad that we're open to things that are not, good for us. And then the people who would be a positive for us in our lives, we are pushing them away. We don't have time for them. So I was just, I'm just throwing out some different scenarios of where we experience this, where a lesson is repeated. It's almost like, you're in a grade in school, and you're not quite getting the lesson. You're not getting it to the point where you're able to pass and move on. And so you have to repeat the grade because you haven't learned what you needed to learn in order to move forward. And until you can buckle down and, and devote the time and effort and reach out for help, you're going to continue to repeat. And nobody wants to be this, older person and is probably, 2 or 3 grades behind where you're supposed to be. And, that's not going to be a good situation for you because now you're in this grade with younger people, and you should be further along than where you're at. And so in life, I believe that, the things that we experience, that we should learn from them, and we should learn whether they are, especially when it comes to relationships, whether it is something that we need to welcome into our lives or something that we need to push away. And I think that's a thing as human beings that we struggle with, is that we don't know when to either push something away or to welcome something into our lives. We're more on the side of welcoming any and everything into our lives versus pushing things away. And I think within us as human beings, we have this thing where we want to give people the benefit of the doubt, and we want to give them a chance and say, okay, I know I experienced this, with someone else, and I see all the signs, similar signs and everything, but I'm going to give this person a chance because they're not the person that I experienced this with in the past. So you give them a chance, even though all the signs are there. And I think it's just that in us that we want to give people a chance, and, we basically ignore all of the things that we should have learned in the past that we can now apply and say, and I'm not saying that, everybody you encounter, you're like, oh, yeah, they're just like, this situation, there are times you need to take time and get to know the person. But then there's times when the signs are so they're basically put you on a high alert that you need to back away from that situation or push that situation away. But I think us as human beings, it's in our nature to want friends, want relationships, want to have bonds with people. But at the same time, we need to learn, from the lessons that we experience, that we can move forward. Otherwise, we find ourselves repeating the same thing over and over. And then, 5-10 years down the line, you haven't made any progress because you haven't learned from the lessons or experiences that you've encountered in life. And sometimes when it comes to, dealing with people, and I think about growth in being able to be positive for people, to be there to help people. And there's a growth to the point where you realize that there are some people that you can't help. And you can be that type of person that you want to help everybody. My sister, she often calls me Captain Save-A-Lot. And, but I had to grow to a place and learn from experiences that there are some people I can't help. Even though it's in me to want to help, I had to grow to the place and learn that, there are some people you gotta push them back. And there's the help that they need is something that you can't provide. And you have to be able to, apply that. Otherwise, you'll find yourself burning down, trying to take on everybody's problems. And, and I'm not saying that you should not try to help people, but you also need to know that, I've had experiences where, I knew I couldn't help the person. There was nothing I could do. There was no talking, enough conversation. It was out of my control. I couldn't do anything to help them. And so at that point, I had to pray for them, but I could not hear all of their stuff because that stuff was burdening me down, and it was not beneficial to me. And so at that point, they really need to see seek professional help. And, and like I say, so through experiences, you learn where you can be a help and where you're not able to help. And then in that case, you need to advise that person that they need to seek some professional help. And then also, praying for them, that God will help them with their situation. But sometimes, like I said, we repeat life lessons, a lesson that has come to teach us something. We repeat it because we have not learned. And I know some may not, agree with this, but I'm just giving my opinion and thoughts on this, is that I believe that a lot of times we repeat things because we haven't really learned from it. And so we have to repeat it until we can get to the place that we say, okay, I get it. I get what I'm supposed to get out of this. And then we can move forward and on to another lesson. But until we, conquer or, learn what we're supposed to learn from the experience or the lesson, then we find ourselves continuing to be faced with that. But I'm very grateful that, God gave me this subject, because I think it's something that we all experience, and yet we probably don't think about it. We probably don't think about it, especially at the time when we're, dealing with certain things. But I don't know about you. When I look at my life, there's a lot of times I see where if I had gotten it, I could be further along. I could not, you find yourself being stagnant or in a place where there's something you need to get in order to move forward, and you haven't quite gotten it yet. And I look back and I say, okay, if I had a bad experience in my life, and either I can use that as an excuse and say, what's the use, that life isn't always going to be, things are going to end up like this, or I can learn from that, not only learning about what the other person did or didn't do, but learning about myself and what I did or didn't do. And then being able to use that going forward, not to beat people down or run people away, but to have that experience that you can use, that when you see different things or you encounter different things, you're not blind and saying, oh, I never experienced that, or I never knew anything about that. But you can, because of your experience, you can say, okay, I've seen this before, or I've been through this before. And then being able to have the strength and the courage to either, push it away, or if it's something that is going to be a positive for you, to be open to it. And I believe that in all of our lessons, a lot of times at the time, we don't even understand why we're having to go through certain things. But we have to trust that God, whatever he allows to come come our way, that he has a reason or a purpose for it. And I believe there's a lesson to be learned, especially when it's an experience that we don't view as being a positive for us. We view it as being a negative, and a lot of times we're like, why did this have to happen to me? But again, it's just like being in school. There's different things, different classes you have to take and stuff. And even in college, different classes. And you in your mind, you're like, I'm never going to use this. But you never know. You never know what you may have. Maybe there's quite a bit of it that you may not use, but there's something that you will be able to use. And a lot of times it's the experience of being responsible, of getting your work done, being responsible as far as attending classes, and and it prepares you to be in the real world. If you're not in a working situation already, it prepares you to having that being responsible and being committed to something. And that's outside of the different, classes and stuff like that. But then the classes, hopefully, you've taken some classes that are, geared towards, what you're going to, the type of job you're going to be pursuing when you graduate. And then you can take that, the book knowledge, and in some instances be able to apply it. But I think the biggest thing with college is getting you prepared to be responsible in the real world, or being able to work and having that commitment, and getting things done in a timely manner, being responsible for being at work and on time. And when you're presented with tasks, being able to complete those tasks, being able to interact with others and work with others, that the whole college experience, it prepares you for those types of situations. But again, I believe that we repeat life lessons until we learn. Until we can get it, it's more than likely it's going to come back around. Because in our as long as we live on the earth, things are going to come back around. And if you've learned from it, if it does come back around, you can say, okay, I've seen this before. It's just like, in school when you are taking a test and you've been attending class, you've been reading the material and everything, and you see a problem on the test, and in your mind, you're like, I've seen this before. I can do this. I know the answer to this because I've seen this before. I've studied. I've listened to the teacher, the lectures. So this is not new to me. And so I believe that when we have life lessons, we shouldn't just chalk it up. Oh, I got through that and I'm done with it. No, we need to. What was it that I was supposed to learn from it? And then be able to keep that, hold on to, what we've learned from it, that we can apply it, because it's a possibility that it may come back up. Just like you may have little quizzes in school, and, and so you don't forget the stuff that you were tested on in the quizzes. And because you don't want to forget, because later on you may have a test or a final, and that that stuff may be included on there. So you don't just throw it away. You keep it and you use it, as needed, if it comes up later. And so that's what I believe when it comes to life lessons, that there is something to learn. And if we want to move forward, we need to get it. We need to get it. And that's what caused us to be stagnant a lot of times, is that we haven't learned. And then when it comes back around, we're thrown off again, because we haven't learned enough to be able to face it and be able to get through it without it defeating us, without failing the test. But then because we know the answers now, we know what this looks like. I've seen this before. So now I can get through this problem, because now I'm equipped with what I need. I've learned from it in the past. Now I'm equipped, and I can pass this test, that I can move forward and onto something else. So I pray that everyone who is listening to this podcast, that you're able to get something out of it. And we want to encourage you to join us for another episode of Fred Speaks.